Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes. Now, I'm going to be doing a story here about trans children. There are two stories, but they're just so interlinked. It was just got to do them as a single video. And one of them is about J.K. Rowling and how she thinks that sense is finally returning and how children are being now finally protected, at least in this country. And another is one of the most awful abuses of medicine and of covering up the facts to a point where I think people need to go to jail. It's that bad with regards to the treatment of trans children. Now, I'm going to do the J.K. Rowling part first, but seriously, stick around for the second part of this video because it will blow your mind. And to be honest, I couldn't believe it when I first read it either. It's like, are you kidding me? But it's obvious what's going on, that these people, these doctors, are just setting out to deliberately harm children. Now, J.K. Rowling, we're getting to the first part. J.K. Rowling is hailing a big development in trans rights. As she says, well, in the trans rights, in the trans debate, as she says that sanity is returning. And the reason for it is that the charity Mermaids has actually been ordered by the Charity Commission to implement the findings of the Cass report. Now, if you remember, just as an aside, the Mermaids was set up by a woman who has a son who pretends to be a girl, but he's still a boy. And always will be, and then started working very closely with the abusers of children who wanted to, basically cut bits off children and experiment on children. And she wanted them to start calling her a doctor because she said it would give her authority and be psychologically beneficial for people coming to her. She has not got one qualification to her name, but demanded to be called a doctor. Eventually, she, of course, got the big elbow because she was just such an embarrassment. And there are now views of actually prosecuting her for the abuse that she's committed on her son. Weird. But Rowling has hailed this big U-turn, this big push for sanity, because it's saying that by forcing the Cass report to be implemented, it will undoubtedly prevent the abuse of children and safeguard their future. She's saying because there's so many children railroaded at an early stage by these wokery wankers that are pushing this because they want to experiment on these children who then regret it, because even as Cass reported, 97.5% of children who went to the clinic, the Tavistock Clinic in London, to have their bits cut off, to be given these trans medications and blockers and all sorts of things, actually weren't transgender. They were grieving, they were depressed, they were gay, they were on the autism spectrum autism spectrum. All sorts of reasons. Certainly not this. And parents who would rather have a trans child than a gay child. Weird. Yes, I want to physically cut bits off my child and totally destroy any future they may have because I can't accept that little Johnny's gay or little Annie's a lesbian. Seriously. Anyway, the Charity Commission has now ordered Mermaids to have regard and follow the findings of the Cass report. And of course, this is why J.K. Rowling, this is what J.K. Rowling has been fighting for. And this is why she's come out and said it is absolutely good news. She's been involved in this from day one. It's all part of her gender protection, I would say crusade, because it literally is a crusade on her part now. The defence she's doing for the children and women in this country, and I would also say as well, because of the protection of men as well. By saying men are men and women are women, she's protecting the rights and freedoms of men not to have women coming into their areas. Last thing I would want would be a woman walking in to a changing room where I'm sitting there with little Dave hanging out, Wouldn't like that at all. I mean, I have I don't know. I'm not going to sit there and lie. I have an average sized chap, but whatever. I still don't want it exposed to strange women. Not my cup of tea at all. But there we go. So well done for JK. And it shows that she's part of the winning team and that everyone slowly is starting to see the danger of what they're doing, particularly to children. Now, that's that story done and that's moving there. But I want to tell, we've got to talk about the other story. Now, this one comes from the New York Times. Sorry, I'm lying. The New York Post, the other one. And there was a £10 million study on trans kids. Dollars, it would be, wouldn't it? $10 million study on trans kids over several years, and they monitored what was happening to them. And it basically, this report was sat on by a doctor that was running it for years, for about 2 years. She deliberately withheld the publication. And indeed, because it was taxpayer funded, they actually had to take her to court to finally force the publication of this report. And it was a study into the effect of puberty blockers on trans children. And this is after this $10 million study found that puberty blockers had zero effect on the mental health of trans children. And it found very similar results to the Cass report, that these children were mostly not transsexual, or, they weren't gender dysphoric. And also the fact that it recognised that actually the problem wasn't physical. And so blocking puberty didn't fix it. It was all mental. They needed mental help, not physical help, and certainly not medications and substances that would destroy them and sterilise them and utterly remove from them any chance of breeding in the future. And it's worse than that. Now, this doctor is called Joanna Olson Kennedy, and she told the New York Times that she believed the study would be weaponized. So what you've got is someone who abuses children has done a report on the chemicals that she would use to abuse children and found that this child abuse that she's been doing is unnecessary. So she's hiding this report on child abuse so that she can carry on abusing children, and then claiming that it would be weaponized against her by people who don't want her to abuse children. Well done, Joanna Olson Kennedy. Now, the worst of it is that not only does it not have an effect on the mental health of children, it can actually make things worse, because they're going in, taking this thing, thinking that things are going to happen and things are going to change and they're going to come out the other end like beautiful butterflies, and finding out that little boys are coming out as grown men with the bodies of little boys and are stuck forever with tiny winkies, for example, and undescended testicles. Yes, and then they've realised that they're not actually trans. They have to go through life as, well, men, but men with little boy penises and undescended testicles. And it's making them worse. And in fact, children who are given these, and the report shows it, have a higher level of self-ending at the end of it than if they're not given them. And you think that's bad enough. Apart from these things that are not helping them, making them worse, and increasing their rate of self-ending, it gets worse, because apparently some of the side effects of these puberty blockers is increased heart stress, heart damage, brain damage, liver damage, kidney damage, an increase in the propensity of certain cancers. And it's just not the sort of thing that anyone who loves their children should be giving them. And why is there such a rise in the number of gender dysphoric children? Because there never was. However, it is an American invention. It was invented by industry. The medical industry invented this so that they could treat them and charge large amounts of money for for treating them. And that's what this report is showing. And that's why she's had to sit on this report for years until she was forced to have it published. Now, I don't suppose anyone's going to sue and anyone's going to get away with it, because ultimately the parents have had to sign the waivers. But it just goes to show that you can't trust the doctors or anyone involved in the gender industry. And believe you me, it's an industry. And all these abusers of children. And you've got to think the likes of Stonewall, which pushes this shit as well, they're all guilty of massive child abuse that leads to massive amounts of self-ending, as well as physical and mental damage. So well done, Stonewall, you child-abusing, child-killing bastards. And anyone who agrees with them, and anyone who sits there and contemplates doing this to their children, think on. Think of the damage. Think of the seriously bad things you're doing to your children. Thank you very much.